Hello everyone, welcome to my new channel, Our Indian Laws. In this video, we are going to discuss about Section 8 to Section 13 of Hindu Succession Act 1956, which deals with succession in the case of males. In this video, we are also going to discuss about who are Class 1 heirs, Class 2 heirs, and who are agnates and cognates, and also when they get the property of an intestate one after the other. We are also going to discuss which son, daughter, widow and mother are eligible to inherit the property of an intestate and who are not. To understand clearly about Hindu male succession, please watch the complete video, and if you get any doubt, mention in the comment box, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Section 8 speaks about general rules of succession in the case of males. According to the provisions of this chapter, the property of a male Hindu dying intestate shall devolve firstly upon the heirs of Class 1 of the schedule, and secondly, if there are no heirs in Class 1, then upon the heirs of Class 2, and thirdly, if there are no heirs in Class 1 or Class 2, then upon the agnates, and if there is no agnate, fourthly, the property of an intestate shall devolve on the cognates of the deceased. So, these rules are very important and have to be read along with the schedule, and they have to be read along with other sections, particularly section 9 to section 13 in the chapter, which contain supplementary provisions. The expression property in this section means all property of the deceased intestate heritable under the Act. This includes not only the joint property of the intestate but also the self-acquired property of the intestate. It also includes the property which he might have inherited from his father, grandfather after the Act came into force. So, let's see who are the Class 1 heirs of the schedule. Son, daughter, widow, mother, son's son, son's daughter, daughter's son, daughter's daughter, son's widow, son's son, son's daughter, son's widow, or the Class 1 heirs of the schedule, and the remaining daughter's son, son's daughter's daughter, daughter's daughter, and daughter's son's daughter are the persons who are added by the Amendment Act 2005 of the Hindu succession. So, these are the heirs in the Class 1 of the schedule. They take the property simultaneously and to the exclusion of all other heirs as stated in Section 9. So, let's move to the Section 10, distribution of property among heirs in the Class 1 of the schedule. So, in this section, there are some rules through which the property of an intestate shall be divided among the heirs in the Class 1 of the schedule. So let's see what are those rules. Under Rule 1, the intestate's widow, and if there are more widows than one, all the widows together shall take one share. And under Rule 2, the surviving sons and daughters and the mother of the intestate shall take one share. And under Rule 3, the heirs in the branch of each predeceased son or each predeceased daughter of the intestate shall take between them one share. And under Rule 4, this rule is related to the distribution of share as referred in Rule 3. Among the heirs in the branch of predeceased son, the property of that predeceased son shall be taken equally to the widow, surviving sons and daughters. And among the heirs in the branch of the predeceased daughter, her property shall be taken by her surviving sons and daughter in equal portions. Now let's move to the Class 1 heir son. Which son is eligible to inherit the property of an intestate and who is not? Actually, the expression son used in the Class 1 of the schedule has not defined in the Act, but the expression son includes both the natural son and the adopted son in accordance with the law relating to the adoption among the Hindus in force at the time of the adoption. Both the natural son and adopted son are eligible to inherit the property of an intestate. Then what about the posthumous son? According to Section 20 of the Hindu Succession Act 1956, a son of an intestate who was in the womb at the time of the death of the intestate, though subsequently born, is to be deemed for the purpose of the succession as if he born before the death of the intestate. Let's see what is the position of the son who was born after the partition, whether he gets the property from an intestate or not. So, when there has been a partition of joint family property between a father and his sons, and thereafter a son is born to the father, then that son will take an interest by birth in the property obtained on partition by the father, and the property will be their coparcenary property. Let's see what about the position of the divided son. The Act does not differentiate between a divided son and a son who had remained joint with the father or his father and other coparceners, except in cases falling under Section 6, which relates inter alia to the undivided interest of a father in a mitakshara coparcenary. The self-acquired property of the father will devolve by succession upon his heirs specified in the class 1 of the schedule, including a son who had separated from the father as well as a son who had continued to remain in the joint family with the father. The illegitimate son of a male Hindu dying intestate is not eligible to any share of the inheritance, but he is entitled to claim maintenance from the father and also on his heirs, that means on the heirs of the father. And if a son is born of a void or voidable marriage, he is deemed to be a legitimate son and he is entitled to succeed to the property of such parents. Now let's see what is the position of the stepson. A stepson is a son of a previous marriage of the wife of the intestate, and he is not entitled to the property of the stepfather. Now let's move to the son having physical or mental defects. According to Section 28 of the Hindu Succession Act 1956, that no person is now disqualified from succeeding to any property on any ground whatever provided in this act. Now let's move to the position of the daughter of an intestate in class 1 heirs. Which daughter is eligible to inherit the property of an intestate and who is not? Just as in the case of a son, a daughter is also means a legitimate daughter, natural or adopted. All are eligible to inherit the property of the intestate. And if they are naturally born or adopted, they are equally inherited. An illegitimate daughter cannot inherit the property of the intestate. A daughter also includes a posthumous daughter but does not include the stepdaughter. The position of daughters of void and voidable marriage is same as that of son. And the distinction between the married, unmarried and widowed daughters or indigent daughter is no longer operative. That means these married daughters, unmarried daughters and widow daughters or indigent daughters are eligible to inherit the property of the intestate, and unchastity of a daughter is no bar to inheritance. The propositor's widow means the widow of a valid marriage. If the propositor's marriage was void or annulled voidable marriage, the wife will not be his widow. It is submitted that Section 16 of Hindu Marriage Act 1955 confers a status of legitimacy on the children of the annulled voidable marriage and not on the wife of such marriage. A divorced wife will not be his widow. An unchasted widow can also inherit the property of the intestate, and if she remarries, she will not be divested of her husband's inheritance. A son's widow who has remarried on the date when the succession opens cannot inherit the property of the intestate. A mother inherits the property simultaneously along with son, widow, daughter and other heirs as specified in class 1 of the schedule. An unchastity of a mother is no bar to inherit property from the son. A mother is also entitled to succeed to the property of her illegitimate son as a heir in class 1. A mother of a son born of void or voidable marriage is also entitled to succeed as a heir in cases falling under Section 16 of Hindu Marriage Act 1955. A stepmother is not entitled to inherit to her stepson as one of the heirs in class 1, but She can be a heir as father's widow under entry 6 of class 2 of the schedule. Now let's move to the class 2 heirs. If there are no heirs of the class 1, then the property of an intestate shall devolve upon the class 2 heirs of an intestate. These class 2 heirs are divided into 9 entries. The rule in the class 2 heirs is that one entry excludes the other. That means all the heirs in one entry shall take the property of an intestate simultaneously, excluding the other entries. Now let's see who are those class 2 heirs. Under entry 1, father. The father is the only heir specified in entry 1 of the class 2. He takes the whole property of an intestate if there are no heirs in the class 1. Here the important points are: a father is not eligible to inherit the property of his illegitimate son, and a father of void or voidable marriage is entitled to succeed as a heir in cases falling within the purview of Section 16 of Hindu Marriage Act 1955, and a stepfather is not entitled to succeed to the property of her stepson. Now let's move to the entry 2. In entry 2, son's daughter's son, son's daughter's daughter, brother and sisters are the heirs. In this entry, if there is any brother or sister by full blood, the brother or sister by half blood is excluded, and when there is no brother by full blood or by full blood, the brother or sister by half blood inherits the property of an intestate under Section 18. The brother or sister by uterine blood are excluded in entry 2 of the class 2, although they are related by legitimate kinship. A uterine brother can, however, succeed as a cognate under Clause D of Section 8 when there is no heirs of the deceased under Clause A to C of the Section 8. Now let's move to entry 3. Under entry 3, daughter's son's son, daughter's son's daughter, daughter's daughter's son, daughter's daughter's daughters are the heirs. And under entry 4, brother's son, brother's daughter, sister's son, sister's daughter are the heirs of class 2. And under entry 5, father's father, father's mother are the heirs under class 2. Father's widow, brother's widow are included under entry 6, and father's brother and father's sister are included under entry 7, and mother's father and mother's mother are included under entry 8, and finally mother's brother and mother's sister are included under entry 9. So these are the class 2 heirs. Under Section 11, the property of an intestate shall be divided between the heirs specified in any one entry in class 2 of the schedule so that they share equally. Now let's move to Section 12, Order of Succession among agnates and cognates. Order of succession among agnates and cognates shall be determined in accordance with the rules of preference as under. Under Rule 1 of the heirs, the one who has fewer or no heirs of ascent is preferred. That means when the claimants are descendants, ascendants and collaterals, the descendants are preferred over the latter two. That means ascendants or collaterals. And when there are no descendants, the ascendants are preferred over the collaterals, and the collaterals takes only in the absence of both ascendants and descendants. And according to Rule 2, when there are number of degrees of ascent is the same or none, the heir is preferred who has fewer or no degrees of descent. That means when all claimants are descendants, the one having fewer degrees of descent will be preferred, and if they have same degrees of descent, they take the property simultaneously as between themselves, and they will take per capita. Under Rule 3, where neither heir is entitled to be preferred to the other under Rule 1 and Rule 2, they take the property simultaneously. That means when all the claimants are ascents, the one having fewer degrees of ascent will be preferred, and if they have same degrees of ascent, they take the property simultaneously. and when all the claimants are collaterals, those who are having fewer degree of ascent will be preferred. And if the degrees of ascent are the same, the one who has the fewer degrees of the descent will be preferred. And if among the claimant collaterals, when degrees of the ascent and descent are the same, all of them take simultaneously and among them they share per capita. Now let's move to the section 13, computation of degrees. For the purpose of determining the order of succession among agnates and cognates, the relationship shall be reckoned from the intestate to their heirs in terms of degrees of ascent or degrees of descent or both as the case may be. Degrees of ascent or degrees of descent shall be computed inclusive of the intestate. Means degrees of ascent and degrees of descent shall be computed including the intestate, and every generation constitutes a degree either ascending or descending. In accordance with the rules laid down in section 12, agnates and cognates may be divided into following grades. Agnates who are descendants. These agnates are related to the intestate by no degrees of ascent. For example, son's son and son's daughter. So these are the descendant agnates. So let's move to the ascendant agnates. These agnates are related to the intestate by only degrees of ascent. That means, for example, father's father's father and father's father's mother. These members are the examples of ascendant agnates. Let's move to the collateral agnates. These collateral agnates are related to the intestate by degrees of both ascent and descent. For example, father's brother's son and father's brother's daughter are the examples of collateral agnates. Now let's move to the descendant cognates. Son's daughter's son's son and daughter's son's son are the best examples for the descendant cognates. Let's move to the ascendant cognates. For example, father's mother's father and mother's father's father are the ascendant cognates. And finally, collateral cognates. Father's sister's son and mother's brother's son are the examples of collateral cognates. So, this is all about Hindu male succession who has died intestate under Section 8 to Section 13 of Hindu Succession Act 1956. Thank you.